1 in 3. That's how many American men will face physical violence, sexual assault, or stalking by an intimate partner. 1 in 3 women worldwide will endure physical or sexual abuse, most often by someone they know. But domestic abuse isn't just bruises. It's manipulation, it's fear, it's control that seeps into every part of your life. I'm Ingrid Dutton, and I survived it. Then I created 1 in 3 so no one else has to suffer in silence. Each week, we break that silence together. Occasionally joined by survivors, loved ones, and experts, we talk about the pain, yes, but also about the healing, resilience, and the fight to reclaim your life. This podcast is more than awareness, it's a lifeline. And a reminder, you are seen, you are heard, you are never alone. Search for 1 in 3 wherever you get your podcasts, because every voice matters and every story deserves to be heard. According to the American Cancer Society, there are approximately 6,660 new cases of ALL, or Acute Lymphocytic Leukemia, in the United States for the year 2022. The group that is at the highest risk for developing ALL are children less than 5 years of age. There is approximately a 1 in 1,000 per person risk for getting ALL in the average person's lifetime. Hey guys, I know we have gotten into the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but like we've always said, we don't have an expiration date on any of these topics whatsoever. So we are actually going to jump back to September, which was Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and share such an important story told by Chrissy Percy. Please stay tuned to the end of this episode for an update on a previous guest, as well as a question Chrissy has for any of you who may have some old baseball gear that you'd love to get off your hands. Here's Chrissy.
Hey guys, it's Chrissy Percy. Single mom here, 2 children, beautiful, Brooklyn and Cruz. They're my life. Last summer, just like any other family, we were getting super excited about going on a beach vacation. This vacation was much needed and much longed for. You know, when COVID hit, the world kind of shut down, and we were supposed to go to Hawaii to visit my brother. Him and his wife are doctors there, and we'd gotten to go once before, but we were supposed to go again, but the world got shut down. So we weren't getting to go to Hawaii, but we were finally going to get to go to the beach. And it wasn't going to just be me and the kids. It was going to be my mom, my sister, her husband, her little baby, my other sister, her then boyfriend, and then my brother-in-law's sister and husband and child. And we had been looking forward to this all summer. The kids had gone to summer camp. They had done all the fun things, but this was truly going to be the last, hoorah before school started. Our trip was going to be for August 1st. We had packed our cars to the gill. Literally, you couldn't fit anything else in there. We were lucky that we got our own selves in there. We started our journey really early on August 1st. Probably about 4:00 in the morning, we're headed to Santa Rosa. My mom had found this beautiful beach home. We were just all looking forward to it. And as we were traveling, we were singing, we were having a great time. And when we were nearing Florida, Brooklyn started complaining of her stomach hurting. We just kind of thought, well, maybe she's, gotten a little car sick. We have been driving, they're tired, excited, all the anticipation. But as we got into Florida, we actually arrived sooner than we were supposed to be there. We were hoping we could check in, but they were still cleaning. They said to give them a little bit longer. So we went to try to find some food. Well, Brooklyn just felt super sick, and she told me she felt like she was going to pass out. And she's never sick. Like, literally, my kids are never sick, which I've always been so thankful. Like, we've just never had to go through that. And but when she said she felt she's going to pass out, I was like, well, maybe she got a bug. Maybe she caught some kind of a virus. So I tried to just calm her down, get her some water. But the place we actually went to get food, it wasn't anything really we wanted. So we got back in the car, and the rest of my family went inside of a place to get some barbecue. But me and Brooklyn sat in the back seat and we kept the air on, and I just kept rubbing her back and her head, and she just kept telling me, she's like, Mom, I just feel really bad. I was like, well, we're almost back to the place, and when you get back, you can take a shower, you can, just rest. And so I thought, still at this time, it wasn't anything to be concerned about. We finally got to check in, and Brooklyn laid in the bed. She just wanted to lay straight. She said her stomach hurt so bad. And in about an hour of laying, she said, Mommy, can I please just get in the shower? And when she got in the shower, she couldn't even stand up. She just laid in the shower. And so at that point, I called I called the pediatrician back home and was like, can I just get her some Zofran, and kind of told them what was happening. And they're like, probably just, got a virus as well. They didn't seem too concerned either. So my baby sister, Sarah, who is also a nurse, she delivers babies here at Park Ridge in Tennessee in Chattanooga. She went and got the medication. She came back and was going to give it to her, and Brooklyn was laying back down. But soon after that, she tried to give her the medicine, but she really couldn't take it. Brooklyn climbed out of bed. She went and sat by the stairs. She said, Mom, you have to take me to the ER. And when she said that, I was like, she was 6 at the time. I was like, what 6-year-old tells their mom they need to go to the ER? So I knew it was something very important. And so I grabbed her up and I told my mom, I said, Mom, we've got to go. So on the way, I called a quick care place because I was thinking, well, maybe if it's just the virus, we could just go there. But when I told them her symptoms, they said, no, you've got to get to a pediatric hospital. So me, my mom, and Brooklyn, we headed to Panama City Beach, Florida, and it seemed like an eternity, but it was only about 45 minutes. When we arrived, because of COVID still, my mom wasn't allowed to go in, but me and Brooklyn, I took her in, and she was, at this point, she was kind of throwing up some brown, liquid, and I was starting to get kind of panicking because I was like, what in the world is going on with her? I knew she was really sick. When we got in there, it looked like a zombie apocalypse. I mean, everyone was just throwing up, hanging out of their wheelchairs, moaning. And I was like, where have I brought Brooklyn? I felt horrible, but I was like, we've got to get her care immediately. Right when I got up to the counter, they said, our pediatric ER closes at 8 o'clock. And it was just a few minutes past 8. They're like, ma'am, you're going to have to sit out here with your daughter for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And I was like, my daughter's really sick. I was like, she really needs to be seen. And the next thing I knew, there's these 2 nurses, and they said, Brooklyn Roger. And they called us back, and they got my daughter into a bed and into a room. And they immediately saw how sick she was. They gave her an IV, and then they had ordered a CT scan. So she went and got the CT scan, and literally within the hour, the nurse walked in with my mom and said, your mom can come in. And I was like, well, that's strange because they said COVID. It was so strict. They were like, there's no way. So my mom was about to turn around and get seated in her chair, and I was sitting in the bed with Brooklyn, and the doctor comes in, and he just sits in the chair, and he doesn't sugarcoat anything or say, ask any questions. He literally just says, your daughter has cancer. And I just remember just the shock. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what? I was like, Brooklyn's never been sick. There was no signs and symptoms that I had thought about. I was like, there's no way, how, she's never sick. There's no way she can have cancer. And my mom was just shocked. We're just both shocked. But come to find out that some of the signs they say that people may have cancer was bruising. Their stomachs could be hurt. Petechiae, which is little blood vessels on their bodies. Hers happened to be just on her neck and her face, but I hadn't noticed it before. I just noticed it when we got in the hospital. But I was like, cancer. I was like, how could this be? And he said, not only is she, she has cancer, she has tepholitis. She's very, very sick. And I think they had even told my mom that she was close to death. She was that critical, and that they were going to do everything they could to keep her alive. But it was very serious. I just remember feeling so helpless and hopeless, but I never questioned God why. I just said, okay, this is what we have. We've got to just go with it. So the whole night, one of the doctors, Dr. Alexander, he worked through the night tirelessly, trying to find a place for Brooklyn to go to. And they said at first they were going to send her to UAB, but then they got a place at Shands Children's Hospital, and that's in Gainesville, Florida. They said the next morning that me and her would fly on an airplane But they said I would have to go get a COVID test saying that I didn't have COVID. So the next morning I got up super early and went to try to get a COVID negative test. And when I got there was already like a million people lined up, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I've got to hurry and get back. There's no way I can do this. So I called the people and I was like, is there any way I can just please, go ahead and get this negative test? Well, right when the lady said to come on in, my sister called me back. She said, Chrissy, get back immediately. She said, they're going to airlift her to Shands, but it's going to be in a helicopter. You don't get to go with her. And I was crying, just trying to get back to the hospital and try not to wreck, just trying to be patient, try to, just breathe. And I remember just rushing back up to her room, and there was these male nurses who were going to be on her flight. And one of them's name was Bluey. And they were just talking to Brooklyn and telling them exactly what they were going to do, how they were going to transport her on the helicopter. And I remember my sister, Sarah, she had stayed with me over the night. And I just remember I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I just couldn't believe, like, she's literally going to go without me. I was really terrified. But Brooklyn didn't seem scared. They got her onto the helicopter. I got to wave to her. Then off she went. They told me it would be about an hour and a half flight for her. It was going to be about a 4.5-hour drive for us. And my sister's boyfriend, which is now her husband, he got us there in about 3.5 hours. They told me once they got Brooklyn to the hospital, though, they would call me and let me know that, she was there safe. Well, I never heard from them, so I was kind of panicking a little bit. Try not to think about it, but I was like, why didn't they call me? Well, come to find out, when we finally arrived at Shands, they're like, well, we didn't need to call you because Brooklyn was able to give us your number, your address, her blood type, like everything about her, which is crazy to me because I'm like, she's 6. But I've always talked to my kids, and I've always, explained things, not just yes, no. I've always told them why things work, and I've told them our number and told them important information that they would need to know. So honestly, it didn't really surprise me after they told me, but I was so proud of her. The night before, they had told us it was a lymphoma, but the day at the hospital, the actual cancer team came and did exams and took more tests. And Brooklyn was officially diagnosed with ALL B-cell leukemia. So they told us if you were going to get a cancer diagnosis, this would be the one you would want. Not that anyone wants one, but this was the most curable and the most treatable cancer. And they were very hopeful that Brooklyn would have a turnaround. But she was very sick. She still had the tephlitis. And so their first, treatment was going to be to get that belly taken care of. So she was admitted into the PICU, and she there was supposed to lay there for weeks. They said she was so sick, but she was only there for maybe 2 or 3 days. Her belly got better. They did tell me, though, when she was in the PICU, their main concern with her belly is that she may have a distended bowel, but she didn't. She ended up getting to go down the floor and started therapies, and she was walking back immediately. Everything was good, and she started receiving her chemo in the hospital right away. And then after she was receiving her chemo, she was good to get out of the hospital. So we actually stayed at the Ronald McDonald House in Gainesville, Florida. And what's so cool to me about the Ronald McDonald House is I was in Alpha Delta Pi sorority, and that was our philanthropy. So my whole life, I've been raising money for the Ronald McDonald House. I've been going to the house to cook meals, been raising money, doing all the things. And it feels like everything now is coming full circle for me and my family. But we were able to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. Me and my mom ended up coming down in Brooklyn. And there, Brooklyn was thriving. People were sending gifts to Brooklyn. She was going to outpatient 2 to 3 times a week. She would get all her therapies at the hospital and outpatient clinic. And she was doing really well. And they were hopeful to send us home at the end of her 30 days. On August 28th, me and Brooklyn and my mom had woke up, and we were going to go to the Santa Fe Zoo there in Florida. And we got up, we went, and Brooklyn was having to take a really strong steroid during this time. And it made her little cheeks like puff up. I mean, she was the cutest little thing. But her face was just so puffy. And she just had this huge appetite. So she wanted to eat all the time. She was wanting Mexican. She was wanting pizza. I mean, anything donuts. She was wanting everything. So this particular day, she was eating all her yummy stuff. We went to the zoo. We saw the animals. She got to see flamingos, which she loves. And we saw this really cute monkey. They were so tiny. I mean, she was having the best time. She looked good. She was just so full of life. And she got her Chick-fil-A after that trip. And then we went back to the Ron McDonald house where we took a nap. And we just kind of rested for a little bit. And then sure enough, Brooklyn, back up around 5 o'clock, she was eating some warmed over pizza. And I even took a picture of her. She was smiling, you know, like, here I am eating my food again. And I snapped that picture. And literally after I took that picture, her eyes started rolling in the back of their head. And I'm like, what in the world is going on with Brooklyn? Like, I was like, what is going on? It scared me so much. And then my mom noticed it. She's like, Brooklyn. It's like Brooklyn couldn't come too. And so we grabbed her up, and my mom, she got in the car that we had rented, and the hospital was right around the corner. And we were just like in a panic. And I was trying to keep Brooklyn awake. I honestly had no clue what was going on. It was scaring me. And of course, my mom drops us off at the ER. I rush in. I'm holding Brooklyn. The guy behind the counter keeps asking me a million questions. I'm like, my daughter's sick. She has cancer. She's neutropenic. Like, you have to, get us back there. And he just kept asking these questions. Finally, they got us back there, and right when we got in there, Brooklyn sat in my lap, and she just threw up everywhere. And they're like, she's really sick. We're going to get her a room. Well, they finally get us out there, get her cleaned up. We get in a bed, and me and Brooklyn lay there together. They do all the blood work that they need to do, and they're like, her blood work looks great. And I'm like, well, but she's obviously sick. Even if her blood work looks good, she's sick. Like, she's been fine. Like, this is not Brooklyn. So then they take us up they didn't do a CT scan. They only did a scan of her belly. Like when you go to have a baby and they do like that scan, that's what they did for her. And they only did it around her abdomen. Well, they got those results back, and they said, oh, nothing's wrong. Everything's great. But what they should have done, honestly, in hindsight, was do the CT scan. They considered it, but they just didn't do it. Well, they send us back downstairs. They say, Brooklyn's fine. Y'all can go home. I'm like, she's not fine. Like, she's really sick. And she was like still lethargic. They're like, well, we can send you up for the night. You can just be here for observation. Well, when we get up to the room, finally, it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. I just noticed Brooklyn just really doesn't seem herself at all. Well, the doctor comes in there, and she's a very new doctor. Possibly still a resident. And I gave her my concerns. I said, Brooklyn does not seem like herself. Her heart's beating really fast. I just feel like something's really wrong with Brooklyn. She said, oh, she's fine. We've done all the tests. We've done her blood. She looks great. There's nothing wrong with her. I said, well, I really feel like there is something wrong. I was like, her heart's beating fast. And then she left the room. But when the nurse came in there, her name's Emma Jade. I'll never forget her because she saved Brooklyn's life. She came in there, and I said, Emma, Brooklyn's heart is beating really fast, and she does not seem like herself at all. And she's like, she saw it, and she believed me. She saw the look in my eyes. She went to take her blood pressure, and it was like 60 something over something really low. And I knew right then my heart just like dropped in my chest, and I just knew something bad was wrong. And then she couldn't get a pulse. She tried to get a pulse, and she couldn't get one. And I tried to be calm, and I was just like, and I know she was trying to be calm, but she left the room, and she came back with a whole group of nurses, and they're like, do you want to stay in here? And I was like, no, I couldn't stay in there. And I just knew something was about to happen. So I just went to the closest empty room where patients or adults can go. And I just dropped to my knees. I remember I had on these slouchy sweatpants and this little tank top, and I just dropped to my knees. And I just begged God. I just said, God, please just save my daughter. I was like, just please save Brooklyn. And I just remember thinking, I really thought that she was gone. I didn't know what was going on, but I just felt like she was gone. And then I got on the phone with my sister because I knew she had worked that night. And I called her at the hospital, and I said, Sarah, please. I was telling her everything that was going on, and she just prayed and prayed and prayed with me and kept me calm. And then I called the Ron McDonald house because my mom was there. She didn't answer her phone, so I had to call the attendant. They they tried to call her too, but they couldn't get her. So then they just had to go wake her up, knocking on the door. So I know it scared her, but she finally got to the hospital. Well, I was still crying and praying, and all the nurses come to me, and I'm thinking they're about to tell me that she's gone, but they said they used a bunch of boluses, and they're taking her straight up to the PICU. And I later found out when I got up there that she'd actually gone into septic shock and that she had a perforated bowel. So what they were concerned with in the very beginning didn't happen then, but it had happened now, which was so bizarre to me. I was like, she had gotten so well and was doing so awesome. I was just like, how did it happen? But when they got her upstairs, they had to work quickly, and they had to intubate her. They literally had IVs all up and down her arms. I mean, they were literally on every arm. They had to do a heart line. They had them in her legs. She was literally hooked up to everything. She had IVs. She was literally hooked up. It was a hard sight to see. And I just couldn't believe she was still with us, but then she was attached to all this. And they said she had to have emergency surgery immediately. So they rushed her down to emergency surgery, and she was in there for about 2 hours. And me and my mom waited outside, and we just prayed. And we were trying to, tell the churches and just tell everyone, just please pray for Brooklyn. And Brooklyn came out of surgery. They said she did a really great job. And that's just, every time she's had to be in the hospital, or even to this day, it's just a true testament of her faith, but also just her bravery and her spirit. Like, every picture I snapped of her at the hospital, she was always smiling. She never acted in pain. She wasn't questioning God either. And she wasn't like, why is this happening to me? Like, she just was going with it. And she was just so strong and so brave. But they were going to have to keep her intubated for a couple more days, because on that Tuesday, she was going to have the next surgery. So Brooklyn was going to have to get an ileostomy bag. While she was intubated, it was very scary, because I definitely had the PTSD of all the machines beeping and the blood pressures. And so I definitely didn't sleep for days and stayed by her side. And she was so agitated about this whole situation that she actually chewed through her intubation tube. They said in all their years of being nurses and doctors, they've never seen anyone chew through it, but she was the first. And we even have pictures. So they ended up having to re-intubate her. And they told us that she would probably be in the PICU for months and months, that she was still very critical, and to expect to be there for a very long time. After her surgery on that Tuesday, they were actually ready to send her back down to the room. After they had just told us she'd be there for months, they said when they would look at Brooklyn in her room and then read their chart, they said literally it was like looking at two different kids. They said there's no way what she looked like and what her chart was saying about her was the same child, but it truly was. And they wanted to send her back down to the floor on Wednesday, and I wasn't ready. I was like, can she just stay at least one more day? Because when you're in the PICU, you have around-the-clock care, and every shift she had at least 2 nurses by her side. So the next day, they're like, well, she's ready to go down. I'm like, this is just, I can't believe it. Y'all just said she's going to be here for months, and now she gets to go back down to the floor. But in all the amazement, we were just so grateful and thankful. When Brooklyn got moved down to the floor, our next thing was for her to be able to poop in her new ileostomy bag. So, of course, here I've become mother and nurse, caregiver, all the things. So I had to learn how to cut all the things for the ileostomy bag, the adhesive, everything. But sure enough, after a couple of days, and then a week, and then another week, Brooklyn got strong and strong and strong and strong, and she was pooping out of her bag. She was gaining her strength back. They'd even said it was still going to be a long time to get to go home, maybe even have to stay at the Ronald McDonald House to keep receiving treatments. But they said, you know what? Brooklyn's going to be so much better if she can just go home and thrive with her family and be back there in Chattanooga. So they said, we're going to do everything to get you back home. And they did. And they said, it's all going to depend on Brooklyn. And Brooklyn was ready. And she did everything she was supposed to do to get strong and for us to get to go home. And finally on that Tuesday, when they said we could go in September, it was like the second to third week on that Tuesday, they said you could go. And literally we were packed up, we were ready. I rented a van and we literally drove from about 2 o'clock that afternoon straight home, straight to Chattanooga, where all my family was waiting on us in Brooklyn, and my son, who had not been with me for well over a month. And I miss him so much. Got to reunite with our family, and everyone got to see Brooklyn. Brooklyn's one of those children who just touches everyone. I know she's my child, but she really is just a light. Everywhere she goes, whether it be church, in the community, her school, she's always just been a light and just touches people. And it was just amazing to be back home. I knew we were going to have a long journey, but just to be back home with our family and to know we were going to have a community of people from school and church and just strangers that have just loved on us, had sent money, had provided ways for us to be able to travel, to eat. It meant the world to us. When Brooklyn got back, she would immediately start her treatments at Erlanger. When we got to Erlanger, there were 3 doctors, and Dr. Keats Blériot was her main doctor. When they got back, they realized that she had still had quite a bit of injury to her belly, so they needed to continue with strong chemo, but they didn't want to hurt her belly any further. So Brooklyn had to wear a bag of chemo. It was called Blincyto. It was about $120,000 worth of medicine. And the pharmacy actually wrote that off for us because we didn't have the money to do that. So for the doctors to be able to talk to the pharmacy and for them to do that was just another huge blessing. But every 48 hours, I would have to change Brooklyn's bag. I had to do it at the exact same time every day. When it was time to change it, had to clean it, had to push heparin through. It was very specific. And it would come every few days in a box with ice. And then I had to make sure it was in the refrigerator and I had to make sure it was always Brooklyn's medicine. And Brooklyn literally carried this thing like a, kind of like a little purse. She just carried it around with her. And places we went, she wasn't ashamed. She wasn't embarrassed. She just carried that little thing. She called it her puppy. It was really funny. But we did that for a month. And then each month would become a phase of what treatment they would give her. So then there would be medicines that she'd have to take sometimes at home, but mostly in clinic. She would go to outpatient. She'd always have to get her blood work. And everything would always depend on what her blood looked like. So what her neutrophils would be, if she would ever need blood products, if she would need platelets. But all through those times, she did really well. And they had told me that when it got to be about March, April, that would be her toughest month of chemo. And it truly was. She had all of her hair, gorgeous curls. And then one morning she woke up and her hair was gone. And I thought, surely Brooklyn will want to wear a wig or a cap. No, not Brooklyn. She didn't care. She loved her head. She had the most beautiful bald head I've ever seen of anyone in my entire life. She was just beautiful. And she still just had this glow on her. When you go to the hospital, she'd see other kids that were sick, and she always wanted to smile or give them something to make them feel better. And even though there was hard days at the hospital with LPs and going to sleep and throwing up, Brooklyn still was going through all the treatment and doing very well. And then she would finally get to maintenance phase, which happened a little bit before summer. And that was the phase that we looked the most forward to, because then it was going to be oral chemo at home and not have to be at the hospital as much. Because going weekly can, have a toll on not just her, but the family, and having to miss it out. And Brooklyn couldn't go to school all last year, but Miss Jamie, her teacher, she made sure to have Zoom calls with her at least 3 times a week so she wouldn't get behind in school. And some days they wouldn't even do schoolwork. Brooklyn just wanted her best friend, as she called Miss Jamie, just to talk to. And Miss Jamie said she's the littlest adult she's ever met. She said they would just talk like normal conversations. She said Brooklyn would go throw up and come right back, do somersaults, throw up, come back, do their schoolwork. But Miss Jamie really made sure that she wouldn't lose any ground in first grade and that she would be ready for second grade. So we got the news we had wanted. Brooklyn got to attend school back in August. She got to start back with her class. And the first day of school happened to fall on Chapel Day. And Mr. Top said some really kind words about Brooklyn. And then Jennifer from Lena's Love, which is, I'd love to talk more about Lena's Love and Austin Hatcher's Foundation in a minute. But Jennifer from Lena's Love, she came and she got to speak to all the kids and let them know how much Brooklyn wanted to be at school, and that Brooklyn, needed her friends, and that for them not to be afraid of Brooklyn, because what she had, it's not contagious and she can't hurt anyone, but just to, still love on her and still be a friend to her. And literally Brooklyn has just amazed me. She has started piano. She's back in gymnastics. She does Awanas. She's gotten a line in a play they're doing, a solo. She tried out for it. She just ran cross country. She got like second and third place both races that she did. She's just literally doing everything and excelling, but she's just so happy to be back in school, to be with her friends, to be with the people that love her. The school was so amazing last year. They actually paid for my kids' tuition, which was such a huge blessing. And I'm so glad that we're at BCA Academy. I mean, most schools wouldn't be able to do that, but they actually gave her a parade last year and let her parade around the whole school. And they made signs for her and told her how much they loved her. So we're just so glad to still be a part of this school who has just surrounded us with love and have just loved on us, encouraged us, and also were able to provide monetary gifts for us, which has been such, like I said, overwhelming, but just such a blessing to us as well. And here we are today, and Brooklyn is doing phenomenal. Her journey's not over. She will be going through this chemo treatment till next December. So December 2023, Brooklyn will get to ring the bell at Erlanger. She'll get to say she has no more cancer. So now she takes an oral chemo at home. She takes it once a night, and then once a week, she takes methotrexate, and it's a really yellow, nasty liquid that she hates. And we sometimes have to coax her to take it. She has to take that once a week. And then every 3 months, she has to go and get an LP, which is a lumbar puncture, where they put this long needle in her back. And they put some chemo in her, but when they put the chemo in, they also pull out some of her, I don't know exactly what they pull out, but they pull to see if there is any cancer still in her body. They look at all the cells and see where they are with that. And when she has to get that LP, she has to take a steroid for 5 days during that. But Brooklyn's looking forward to everything a second grader would look forward to. She just led chapel yesterday with her class, and she did amazing singing, getting on the stage, saying her Bible verse. She just loves life. She, to this day, has never had a bad word about cancer or what she's going through. And her and my son go to counseling at Austin Hatcher's. And Cruz still thinks sometimes, he does say, well, when they ask about feelings and talk about it, he's like, well, I still think my sissy might die. And Brooklyn's like, Cruz, why do you think that? She's like, if I was going to die, I would have died already. Like, I'm good. And for her to have such that outlook and just know, and she knows she has a testimony, and I know she's going to go and do amazing things and have this for the rest of her life. And if I could tell anyone about cancer, make sure that if you do get the diagnosis, that you surround yourself with people who not only pray, but people who will just come alongside you, because cancer doesn't just affect you or your family. It really affects your community, your school. And we've literally had strangers give us money and pray for us and reach out to us, literally from all over the world. And these kids, they're so strong. And I thought, man, this has to be the most uncommonest thing. Like, surely no other people are going through this. And then once you're diagnosed, you realize, like, literally there's so many kids, sometimes babies. At Erlanger, they treat from babies till age 26, and there's literally all that age range there. And it's just amazing to me to see that this really is happening, that these kids are so young and this is really going on. But it's not just you, it's like all these kids. But it means everything if you get involved in foundations. And the two that we are the most connected to is Lena's Love. And I can't say, I mean, they're just amazing. They've come alongside us and been with us through the whole journey, been such a huge support. I'm actually in a support group with other moms. So people you would never come in contact. Now we have this bond that we share, and we meet once a month. And we just get to share stories and share how we can love on each other, and, you know, talk about how someone might work with their child, give them medicine, just give tips, and just love on each other. And then Austin Hatchers, they've been a huge support as well, especially with counseling and camps. The kids have enjoyed going to like summer camps and fall camps. Then Brooklyn did a grief camp. But I just want to tell you, thank you so much for allowing me to share about Brooklyn. She's an amazing person. But there's all these other kids I know who are just as amazing. And sometimes there maybe not be a cure. Brooklyn just met a little girl a few weeks ago, Olivia, and she has neuroblastoma. And it's a very serious cancer, and she's had it for about 3 years. And her and Brooklyn just became instant friends. But we need to find a cure, and we don't need to just give money to like doctors. And we need to make sure the money really is truly going to really find the cure for these kids, because their fight is so hard. But I just want to tell you, thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. And if I could be of any help to any moms, any parents, any child, if Brooklyn could be of help, we want to be that to someone else. If I can be a listening ear, a praying heart, I would love to do that for anyone. But I just want to let you know that I appreciate you allowing me to be on the show. And hopefully this will touch someone. And if anyone's going through the same thing at this time, to know that there is hope. And there are foundations that can walk alongside of them. But there also is people who will just love you, love your family, and support you. I just want to tell you thank you.
Chrissy, that was great. Thank you so much. I did want to say, you mentioned Miss Jamie as Brooklyn's favorite teacher. You have an update for Miss. I mean, you were talking about how amazing Brooklyn is, and she truly is an amazing girl. And Cruz is an amazing boy. I still remember him being one of the first kids that I met in my daughter's class. But clearly they get it from you, because you're doing amazing things as well. Do you want to just share the quick update about you and your connection with Miss Jamie that goes beyond teaching?
Yes. So it's been kind of crazy, because Miss Jamie let me know several years ago that she had this kidney disease. And I told her then, when she had this kidney disease, I said, Miss Jamie, I said, I'll give you my kidney. Like, I'll do whatever. You know, I'm just that person. I've always wanted to give. I've not always had monetary, I've not always had money, but I've always tried to give of my time and give of anything I have, whether it be given to the homeless, anything. I've always taught my kids the same, we're going to give. We're going to give. It's always better to give. We're going to be kind to people. We're going to show Jesus through us. We're not perfect people, but we're going to show and be kind. But I told Miss Jamie about me giving her a kidney, and then kind of the world shut down with COVID. And then she was kind of on I forget how she calls it, but she kind of was doing okay then for a little bit. So they kind of put it on hold, and she wasn't needing a transplant. Well, COVID happened, all that. And then she was good. And then Brooklyn got sick. And when she found out she got listed at Emory, I was taking care of Brooklyn and couldn't, volunteer my kidney at that point, even though I still wanted to. And I even cried, and I was like, Mom, I felt terrible. I really want to give her my kidney, but I'm taking care of Brooklyn. I know I can't do this right now. I've got to be strong and healthy for Brooklyn. How could I give my kidney right now? But then Brooklyn got to go back to school, and she ended up listed at Vanderbilt. So when she listed at Vanderbilt, literally the night she posted it on her Facebook page, I immediately went and enrolled. The next day they call me. They say, you're interested in giving your kidney? I'm like, yes. They said, we're going to mail you out this blood work. You got to go get your blood and send it back to us. I received it like on a Monday night at on on a Tuesday night. I received it at like 9 o'clock at night. The next day, I went and got my blood work immediately. I sent it off. And then whenever they did all their, what they do with the blood, they called me back immediately and they said, Chrissy, you're 100% match. I said 100%. I was like, that's amazing. I was like, I already knew I was a match. I knew I was going to be your donor. Like, I have O positive blood. She has O positive. I was like, I knew this whole time I was going to be her donor. But I didn't know exactly everything. But what they said is literally they took my blood and her blood and they mix it together. And there was literally zero resistance. So that means literally nothing. So if they were to give her my kidney, there would be no issue. There was zero. And they say sometimes people can still have resistance but still get the kidney, but they said zero. And that's probably hard and very rare for it to be zero. So every time I would get my blood work or get a call from Vanderbilt, I would call her and tell her, and she would just be so excited. And that day when I called her, she literally just cried and she said, Christy, you don't even know. She's like, you're my hero. She's like, I just want to tell you thank you. Like, she was very, very grateful. And of course, to me, it didn't seem like anything big because it would be something I would do for anyone because that's just who I am. And I didn't realize what it meant for her. But she's been calling me her angel and her family. And anyways, I had the psychology appointment. It was a Zoom call yesterday. And then I go over fall break. So that Wednesday, I think it's the 12th or the 13th and 14th, I'll go and have extensive tests run. So they'll have to do like a kidney function, CT scans, EKGs. Then they'll take that to a committee. And then they'll make sure I can live without one kidney and everything else is great to go. And then soon after that, hopefully, it's all a go. And I'll be giving her my kidney. And we'll probably wait till after the holidays and maybe do it like, I'm thinking early January. So it's just an exciting process. I told her today, I said, they try to ask me all these crazy questions in the psychology, like, you're giving you can back out. You don't have to do this. And I just told Miss Jane today, I was like, Miss Jane, I'm not scared. Like, I'm really excited. Like, this is really something I'm excited about because my first job out of school, I was an activity director. And I knew that those patients would pass away, and they did. But while they were alive, I made the quality of their life better. And I was like, by me giving my kidney to Miss Jamie, that's making her quality of life better. She's not only a wife, a teacher, she's a mom, and I'm a mom. And I want her to be able to experience all the mom things and get to see Lucy grow up and, get married and graduate and do all those things. And so to me, it's just a gift, but I'm not feel like I'm losing out on anything or it's anything I'm doing major. And I don't want in any way to have any type of, like, this isn't about me, I don't need any accolades or pats on the back. This is something I'm very grateful that I can do.
I love it. It's like two happy stories all in one.
Yes.
I mean, Brooklyn's doing an amazing. I'm so excited to hear how well she's doing, and not surprised at all at how strong she was throughout that entire process. Because again, I mean, she came from you.
Yes.
There's one more thing. I don't know if you want to mention. You're going to the Dominican, and so you're looking for a few,
yes,
maybe donations.
Yes. So our church gets to go on mission trips every year. I used to go on them all the time when I was growing up, but of course, having kids, working, I've missed out for years and years. And this year they said they were going to Dominican. I was like, there's probably no way I can go, but I was like, I'm gonna at least try for it. I was like, Brooklyn's doing well. I really, really, really want to do this. And I usually don't like to take no for an answer anyways. But the one key thing was I needed a passport. Well, let me tell you, I had to drive to Atlanta last week and get an emergency passport. The lady downstairs wasn't too nice about it. She's like, you're probably not going to be able to get one. And I was trying to tell her what it was for. But thankfully, the lady upstairs, she got me a passport. I had to stick around in Atlanta for several hours and go pick it up at 2:30. Again, I don't have a lot of money, so the church is willing to pay for my part to go to the trip with the church, which is also another blessing. But I did get my passport. The church is going to pay for me to go. We're going to do a baseball clinic. So there's a bunch of kids, teenagers who love baseball in the Dominican, but it's going to be a perfect opportunity to spread the gospel and just to show these kids and people that they're loved. And there's people that want to be with them, play baseball, give medical treatment. So I've asked people, if you have any baseball equipment, it can be old, used, any baseball equipment would be amazing. And we're going to take a bunch of extra luggage. We'll put all that equipment in there, and then we'll actually give that and leave that equipment, gloves, bats, shoes, clothes. We'll leave that with those kids, teenagers, before we come back. So anything given would just be given to those kids. So we would just greatly appreciate any old use. I know people will outgrow cleats or outgrow, some ball pants or maybe a glove. So we're just looking for those types of items, and they can just reach out to you. They can reach out to me, and we'll just make sure I can get it, set up to pick up.
Are you looking for any specific sizes or age range?
No, they just said kids and teenagers.
Okay. So we'll definitely look out for that. Wow. Chrissy, I'm so excited to have gotten to catch up with you. You've been super busy, and
yes,
this is why.
I know it's hard because my whole life I've always been busy, but when Brooklyn got sick, it kind of made me slow down a little bit, and it was kind of hard, but then I had to come to reality about what was going on. But I'm just so glad to have support, not only from family, but just church members, friends, just people literally around the world that didn't even know us, just praying. We still get letters from people, or I'll get a random Venmo payment or something from the GoFundMe page I had. I didn't set up, but my friends did. And I'll be just like, wow, that's so amazing. Some of these people don't know me, but I'm just grateful that my whole life that I was raised to give, and we always did. And I really feel like everything just came back literally full circle. It was very overwhelming, and it's really hard for me to accept those gifts and accept those. But honestly, there was times I couldn't pray, and I was just so grateful that people could pray for me and pray for Brooklyn when I couldn't and didn't even know the words to say. So I'm just grateful for everyone, whether they prayed, gave money, sent gifts to Brooklyn. She got so many things when we were in Florida for those first, month and a half. She was just racking up on stuff, and she loved it though.
So I forgot to give you a heads up. I usually try to give people a heads up, but at the end of our episodes, we try to ask our guests if they have their favorite self-care practice. So is there anything, you're just kind of always on the go, but is there anything that you either do routinely, or that even if it's not routinely, but just something that you find is a great self-care practice for you?
Before Brooklyn got sick, I would have said going to the gym, but since she's been sick, I haven't really got a chance to go back. But to me, giving is a self-care to me. I know but to me, that just makes me happy and feels like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I haven't even been able to pay tuition to the school this year, but when I became the PTL president and the fundraiser coordinator, I've been able to donate a lot of time to the school. And so that makes me feel good, and that makes me feel like I'm practicing that self-care.
Chrissy, thank you again so much for coming on. I really enjoyed not only being able to catch up with you, but to hear that amazing journey that you and Brooklyn had. Your energy is so uplifting and just palpable. Brooklyn, stay strong, keep fighting. So proud of you, girl. And I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to Jamie. Thank you again for coming on back in April, and I'm super excited for you. This truly couldn't happen to a better person. Jessica couldn't be with us at all on this episode, and I know she's bummed out about it. She would have loved to share with all of this good news. She'll listen to it, I'm sure. But we miss her, and she'll be back next week. Since she's not here, I was able to prepare all the B's ahead of time, so here they are with no pauses. Be brave, be strong, be giving, and believe. Thank all of you for listening. See you next week. Bye.
If you'd like to reach out to us or submit your situation, please contact us at anothersituationpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Another Situation Podcast. We're also on Facebook at Another Situation.
Another Situation is produced and edited by Point 5 Pinoy. Music is written and performed by Tim Crow.